And I think this is also what helps with the athlete transition. And even when you're dealing with injury and you're going to recover is your relationship to the sport. Because that's like what I realized, like, there's this feeling of loss and grief, and it's like, it's like somebody died, but at the same time, you're like, it doesn't really actually have to be like that. Like, I've learned that sport's always going to be in my life, even if I wasn't working in pro sport, but my relationship with it changes.
Welcome to the Injured Athletes Club podcast, the show that helps athletes cope with sports injuries and bounce back stronger. I'm mental skills coach, Carrie Jackson. We're sorry you're here, but we're glad you're with us.
And I'm journalist Cindy Kozma. This week, our guest is another mental performance coach and also a retired Paralympian, Lacey Jai Henderson. But before we get into the interview, we wanted to share another key resource with you.
The resource we want to share with you this time is our official merchandise store. We have an official Injured Athletes Club merch store where you can get all kinds of amazing apparel and accessories to help support you during your injured athlete journey. It's wonderful to give yourself a gift. We have a great hoodie. I love the hoodies. I have a great blue hoodie. Actually, Cindy has a great blue hoodie as well because she's wearing it. We've got these incredible hoodies, some with the logos, some with some sayings that we have in the Injured Athletes Club. There's journals. I have quite a few of the items, actually. There's journals, there's bags, there's hats, all kinds of amazing stuff. It just feels really good when you put something like that on, or you put a sticker on your water bottle, or you write in your Injured Athletes Club journal and you just feel part of, right? You just feel a little less alone in the journey that you're on. So it's a really great place to give yourself a gift or to buy a gift for an injured athlete that you know right now that maybe needs just a little bit of support. So head to our website, injuredathletesclub.com, and there's a shop tab that you'll see there. Click on the shop tab and you'll see all kinds of cool stuff that we have there for you.
Yes, and we also have gift cards. So if you have a fellow injured athlete in your life and they want to pick something out for themselves, you can buy them a gift card. We also want to give a great big thank you this week to our exclusive sponsor for Season 9, Lever Movement. They're the creators of the Lever System, a portable lightweight device that attaches to a treadmill to reduce your body weight. You'll hear more about this later in the episode, but just know that if you're interested, you can use code INJURED20 for 20% off any device at levermovement.com. And with that, let's get on to this week's interview. We are extremely excited to introduce you to Lacey Jai Henderson. Lacey's a retired Paralympic track and field athlete. During her time competing, she broke American records in the long jump and world records in the pole vault. She was a Parapan American silver medalist and a 9-time national champion. She's retired now as an athlete, but she's working as a mental performance coach for the Portland Timbers. And she's on her way to become the Paralympics host for NBC once again, a role that she also held in Paris last year. In fact, she was the first disabled person to be on the ground for Paralympic commentary, which is an awesome achievement that we talk about a little in this episode. And also, Lacey is a cancer survivor. So I really appreciate it. I actually initially connected with Lacey when I was working on an article just after the Paris Paralympics about the journey of Paralympians who are retiring from the sport. And we talk about that a lot in this episode too. A lot of talk about identity and knowing when it's the right time to transition and also how to do that. So I really appreciated, just like Laura in our previous episode, both of them talked openly and honestly and transparently about that journey, which is a hard one for any athlete. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you all.
It was fun to talk to Lacey for me personally, in part because she's also CMPC. So she's also a certified mental performance consultant. And so now I'm very excited to see her at the next conference now that I know that she does that work as well. So for me, the part of this conversation with Lacey that really stood out the most was talking about all of the different experiences she had and transitions she had where she had to rethink about her identity. And so you'll see throughout the episode the different ways that comes up for her. And that's a big thing that I talk about, with injured athletes and with my clients, and a bunch of different ways of just how we come to these different points where now we're looking at the way that we have had labels or identified ourselves, and does that still apply? And how do we allow ourselves to move into different identities and allow that to be fluid? And that could be a really challenging process. So I really appreciated that part of the conversation. And I think you guys are really going to like that as well.
Right. And Lacey is so inspiring too, because she doesn't portray herself as having everything figured out, but she definitely always wants to give back to others and help other people along the journey that she's been on or the journey that she's still on now. So here is our interview with Lacey. Lacey, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us on the Injured Athletes Club.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we have a saying around here, which is that we're sorry you're here, but we're glad you're with us. And we know that injury and illness and the whole life of an athlete, including after retirement, can be kind of a roller coaster with lots of ups and downs along the way. So when we ask this question, we really mean it, Lacey. How are you doing today?
I love when someone's like, how are you really? Right? Because I think so often we don't even take a moment to think. So let me think. You know what? I'm good. I'm getting into the groove of things. It's early January right now. So it's the staff's first week back to getting ready to preseason with my team. And so it's been a lot of like, hurry up and like get organized, and then this isn't going to work. So I'm like, I'm good. I'm also tired and have energy at the same time for what's to come and energized for that. But man, I come home some days and I'm like, I need to lay down.
Well, and I do want to talk all about your current role with the Portland Timbers, including kind of that transition back into a team environment. But we have so much to talk about your career in Paralympic track and field and your retirement and that. But I actually want to start by talking a little bit about your first serious sport of cheerleading, because I don't think we've ever had a cheerleader on the podcast. And I think it's maybe kind of like underappreciated as an athletic endeavor. So tell us a little bit about like kind of how you got into it and what it's like, especially at the collegiate level.
Yeah, I could talk about cheerleading forever. So I'm so glad we're starting here. Let's just spend the whole hour doing this. I am a cancer survivor, and I lost my leg to cancer when I was 9, and that was in the year 2000. And then something consequently happened very importantly shortly after that, around 2002. And that was when the movie Bring It On came out. And I was like, what is this? Like, I come from a sport. I come from a track family, track and field. And like, after losing my leg, like we're like, all right, that's probably out of the picture, which is ironic. But because I come from an athletic family and kind of the mindset of my parents, they were like, you need to find your sport. So did a bunch of different sports. Bring It On comes out, and I was like, what in the actual tarnation is going on here? These girls are so cool. They're sassy. They have cool uniforms. They do flips. Like, all these things are so amazing about the sport. So I wanted to try. And my parents did such a good job at not really like forcing me to do anything, but just supporting something that I was interested in. So they basically were like, all right, just let us know where we need to drop you off. Like, you can do that. You can figure it out. So I started doing like private gymnastics, and then tried out for my high school team, made my team, and then just I competed. We were a competition team, but still supported other athletic teams. Like, and I think that does kind of go into the spirit of like, it is an overlooked sport. I think so often in the early 2000s and the early aughts when I was in it, the argument of is cheerleading a sport, and it truly is. It was at the time, and even when I was in college, one of the most injury prone sports and like most catastrophic injuries for a variety of reasons. And it was incredibly physical, but it was so fun. I loved the dance, the music. I got really close with my stunt groups, the tumbling, like everything about it. Everything I loved about Bring It On, I loved about my sport. And then at the collegiate level, it's a little bit different. I remember watching the college kids come to some of our competitions and do exhibitions, and I'm like, man, they look so grown up. And then you get there, and they're so much stronger, and it's true. And then you get there, and you're like, I'm so much stronger. There's something that happens developmentally along the way, right, with your skill acquisition, where you're just like, you become better. But the experience of collegiate cheerleading is just like, I'm just so happy about the experience I had, because we got really close with the other sports as a support team. So we had great relationships with other basketball players, with the gymnasts. I went to the University of Denver. and just had a great time, as college kids do, your extracurriculars, right? Like the groups got bigger. And at the same time, you're still able to do your sport. We still did competitive UCA camps. And it was a little bit different because in college, we found ourselves just tumbling a lot more on hardwood. So like the injuries were like, I feel like a little bit more because I was more heavy in competition, less tumbling in high school on hardwood, especially for basketball games. And then like in college, you just beat your body down. I thought that I had a conspiracy. I was like, man, my body's breaking down right as I'm ending my senior year, just in time for the school to be like, bye, not my problem. See you later. But the experience of like going to conference games, becoming close friends with the band and Palms, like it's a sport and it's just so social. And that was just like a fantastic fit for me and my personality, for sure.
So great. I could tell you could absolutely talk about cheerleading for the entire podcast.
I wait for people to ask.
But
no one asks me in my job.
Shockingly. But I'm glad you bring up that injury element too, because it is not only are there overuse injuries, right? But there is that like that risk of traumatic injury, and then also that like element of performance that is interesting too, which I think we've talked to a couple of ballet dancers on here, which I think like adds an extra dimension to the injury experience too, right? Because you might have to perform in pain, but still look like you are not. So
I mean, there's stories I could tell you guys. Yeah, where like we had a girl for one of our comps, like basket toss for like one of the first competition parts of the comp of our like performance. And we had like all white uniforms, and like somebody caught her weird. She got a bloody nose, just bled all over, and then finished the performance. But we got done, and like she was not in my stunt group, so we're like, that was great. And then you look and you see some girl just crying and like just blood all over. Oh man, there's times where you get injured during the performance, and you have like that kind of that like brain moment where you're like, what do I do? And if you have practiced enough, or your coach is ingrained in you enough, you're like, I guess I'm going to finish this job and deal with the consequences later, which, as we know as professionals now, may or may not have been the right choice.
That's right. Right. Yeah, I know. It is really interesting in like we'll see that with different performers, like in cirque or dancing or cheerleading, where that underlying feeling is, well, the show must go on. Yeah. So I guess I better suck it up and do this. And like, maybe that's not the right answer.
That might not be. That's not the right answer every time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, something else that I know you've talked about in a lot of different places, but I would love for you to share it again because I love this story so much, is just how you got into track and field too. It's, I think it really helps like kind of shine a light on the kind of family you come from and the background you come from.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. So I was finishing my cheerleading career. I'm a senior in college. Not a lot of professional cheerleaders in any really viable career sense. And at the time, it was the first worst recession of all time. I know that there's been others before us, but we were the first. And so no one was getting real jobs out of school. Yeah. And there's a couple other things that were kind of aligning just in like the world of Lacey at 21 years old. Like I had started doing a little bit more disability specific things. I didn't grow up in like disabled sport or adaptive sport or even with like a disabled identity, which is a part of my story later on. But I basically, I love that you're like the dynamics of your family. So I was senior in college. I'm 21. This is important because I was like deep into beer pong. That was a social activity that we did. And so, we had a family barbecue, and I'm teaching my dad beer pong. My dad just turned 80. He's like significantly an elder. My dad is everybody's granddad's age. So, I'm like, I'm going to teach my dad beer pong, and he's old. So maybe I'll be able to like actually win and like have some sense of accomplishment.
Spoken from a true like competitive family, right?
Cannot turn it off. He can't turn it off. I just learned pickleball with him, and he was mad I couldn't serve perfectly. That's again, you cannot turn it off. Most people can't. Most athletes can't. And so I'm teaching him beer pong. He has a partner. I have a partner. Whatever. Like an important part of sport, as well as beer pong in most competition, is trash talking. So like we're going off. Somehow the conversation is like, who's a better athlete? And my dad went to Olympic trials for pole vault. He was a 2-time national decathlete champion, big time track coach. And so I'm a Division I athlete and an above the knee amputee. Like, I've overcome adversity, you know, just like me at 21, like you couldn't tell me anything. So somehow the conversation was like, Lacey, like my dad bet me. He's like, you couldn't learn how to pole vault 2 feet. You're not fast enough. You're not strong enough. And like, again, a highly competitive person, like the best way to motivate them is tell them what they are or are not able to do. And like, also, only my family, or, you know, not many families, but my family is one of them, would just have access to a pole vault pit and poles.
Right. Where
readily available. That's not like a normal sport that people just do. And his partner, consequently, was one of his former athletes and a pole vaulting coach. So, of course, it was like, well, why don't you come up tomorrow?
We're doing this. Yeah,
we're going to see. And so the next day, the very next day,
that's awesome.
I go and jump 6 feet. And I didn't have a running leg and I didn't really know anything about para. But I loved the feeling. Pole vaulting reminded me a lot of like the gymnastics aspect of cheerleading with tumbling. It was a lot easier to get inverted when you got a stick to help you than doing it on your own. And so I loved the feeling. I was like, maybe this can be an activity for me since I'm done with cheer. And then the more I Googled, you know, this is probably the internet version 2.0. Like we have wireless at this point. It's okay. But we were still very dependent on our Blackberries at that time. I kept getting rerouted when I would like Google amputee pole vaulting to Paralympics. Because pole vaulting is not an official Paralympic sport. So that's like, it's always great for my intro, right? Because I'm a world record holder. But like when you're one of one athlete doing it, competition is pretty low. I didn't know what it was. There had been some folks like lightly recruiting me, but I grew up kind of with the stigma around disability being like, you know, no special stuff. That's what my dad would say. No special stuff. But they hooked me in because I found out very quickly if I could get my speed faster, I'd be able to jump higher. So I got a running leg. I started competing a little bit in indoors, and then I did one outdoor meet. I did like a unified qualifier that was like a mix of Special Olympics athletes. Shout out to the Special Olympics group. Different than the Paralympics. So the mix of Paralympics. So there's cognitive and intellectual, and then para is specifically physical, with an exception of one class. We don't need to get into the weeds there. But my first race ever, I qualified for the London Games. And again, me at 21, I was like, that's it. I'm going to make it. I'm the new Michael Phelps. Like, I'm the best. And then I go to my first nationals, my first Paralympic nationals, because I qualified for that. And I was like, this is my new career. There's no job, so this is my job. And my first nationals, I got smoked. You know, I got my ass full of kicks. And then, again, when you're highly competitive, you're like, this is not how my story ends. So it was all I needed to really kind of like start that fire.
I love it. And obviously you did have tremendous success in your career, but as you kind of alluded to there's a lot of things that do have to go right to make a high performing Paralympian. And, you know, of course the demands on any elite athlete are high, but that as a para athlete, you're maybe kind of dealing with a few more layers. So yeah, as you got into it, what did you learn about all of that? What goes into staying healthy and succeeding at the Paralympic level?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. I was, again, having a conversation today with somebody, the difference between Olympic athletes and Paralympic athletes. Because I think on the outside, we try to push that it's like, we're the same, you know, the prefix para is meant to be parallel to the Olympics, but it's been a long career that I had, you know, and I've had plenty of time. I've trained with Olympians, I trained with other Paralympians, and there are some significant differences. And I think one, that's the real through line is really the disability identity, which, you know, and a really simple term is an injury. Like physical disabilities are just chronic, long-term, permanent injuries, and then compounded with injuries. And I think for me specifically as a leg amputee, the maintenance of the equipment that you depend on, not just like for living and training, but like for competing and making sure that like they travel okay. And like, you know, this is really like the keys to the castle when it comes to performance. And I think like one of the through lines, even like dealing with injury, but just being a professional athlete within like the Olympic and Paralympic system is just navigating like all the power structures, the politics, like what you need to qualify to get the healthcare in order to get the equipment or to even manage your injury, like really just kind of like the complex mazes you feel like you go through just to make one team every 4 years and kind of carrying that with you. But along the way too is, I think something that's really beautiful about Paralympics is not only do you find like such an incredible acceptance of yourself and your disability and and like finding strength in your disability identity, you find a lot of, I mean, I don't even know how to like articulate this. Like you find so many through lines of so many different disabilities. You see disability everywhere. Like you see struggle and injury and adversity in every sense. And so I mean, I just feel, but again, I'm biased, right? Like you're a lot better at like getting a holistic picture of people in groups and, just like understanding that not everybody's situation is the same. I think like that is something we all know inherently to be true, but it's like way less abstract when you are dealing with your disability. And then you see like, you know, your visually impaired teammate in a cafeteria just being like, shit, how am I going to know what the hell to eat? And you're like, all right, I got you. I'll tell you what's over there. Just you find ways. And you find just what's helped me in my work now is like, that's helped me find so many, you know, problem moments and like ways we can create quick solutions just based on a brief need that somebody has.
Yeah. I think that like the whole sort of understanding the impact of identity is so critical, right? So you have your athletic identity, you have your disability identity, and it reminds me a lot of the work I've done with type 1 athletes where it's really similar, where it's like, this is kind of a permanent injury that you're going to be dealing with forever. And 24/7, you never get a break from it. And so so many of them, I think I love your point too about everybody's experience is different. Because even if I have two athletes, both with type 1, they both have very different experiences. Two athletes I'm working with disabilities, very different experiences, even if they have the same disability. So it's like, and a lot of it has to do with that identity and how they're taking that on. And is there a way to conceptualize it a different way, especially if I've been thinking about myself in a certain way for my whole life? So like one of the things that comes up with my type 1 athletes is I feel broken or less than or not worthy. And how do we rethink that as more of a you're doing everything that these other athletes are doing, and you have an extra 180 decisions you're making every day. Like you're making decisions for an organ inside of your body. Like you are a superhero. You are not less than. And sometimes the first time I say that is the first time they've ever even entertained that thought. So I love this part of the conversation of like, so with your, like in your experiences with your own sports and injury and even your identity now, as you're kind of shifting into being the person helping all of these people, like how do you see your identity shaping the work that you do now?
Yeah, it's hard. First of all, let me say, gout is hard, and I'm not convinced it will never not be hard.
Yeah.
Like, I was thinking about this, and this is more of like the kind of like the neuropsych of it, right? Is like so many athletes start, and even if you haven't specialized in a sport, you've been an athlete since you were a little kid. And so like your literal brain has been shaped and your identity has been shaped by doing sports. And like, sometimes I'm like, did I find the easy way in and out to just stay in sport? Because I've worked with other groups, you know, I should say, like I've worked in other kind of like performance psych development stuff, like with tech folks or whatever. And I was like, I like sports, so I went back, and so I'm here now. But I think like I think I had like read a little bit ahead in y'all's questions, and I had worked with my sports psychologist, and I still work with a sports psychologist. And she was the first person to explain it really as an untangling of identities, which I thought was a really beautiful way to describe it, because it does feel messy. It's so much of it has been messy. I think through my athlete retirement, like that was the theme, was like just being like messy hopefulness, like hopeful for the future, but experiencing the pain and loss and grieving this identity and like saying goodbye to something. And it's still hard. Like, it's so funny. I've talked with other training partners and friends that like that I've known throughout my athletic career. And it's so funny. You wake up every day and you still feel like you're retiring instead of retired. Like there's still a part of it that still feels like you're like, it's just inherently a part of you. It becomes intertwined into your DNA. But I think like even going back to like the identity of disability, like that has been something, the way that I've learned to accept it, that just like we see athletes that accept more chronic injuries and like chronic situations. I think that has helped me become a little bit more agile and adaptable to the intersections I find myself at often, like as a retiring athlete, but at the same time knowing in my work now that I've had a lot of experiences that are applicable to the athletes that I work with. And that's not just specific to performance. I was having a conversation with someone today in a different capacity within the pro soccer structure of just like, they had mentioned, they were like, it's really great that you have had at least, sometimes I feel lost in soccer. Like people still talk about position, like organizing based on position. I'm like, man, I played 7th grade soccer and that did not set me up for success here. I know a little bit, but I was not that good. You know, there's strengths of being an athlete that you don't even realize that you have that seem like so unimportant at the time. But this person was talking to me about just like the ecosystem of the organizations, like a player's organization, like athletes commission versus like the actual like league organization, stuff like that. And so it is funny, like there's things that you learn as like an athlete and through your athlete identity about the training, the everyday, but also just like as you navigate the systems, the further along you get as an athlete, collegiate level, pro, even different recreation stuff, because that's becoming really, really formalized. Those are skills that are like intangible until they become like a real thing in your adult life. So, and I don't think like if I had been really rigid with my athlete specific identity that I would have snipped that one out, at least as early as I have.
Can you run more mileage without getting hurt? Return to running sooner after an injury.
Keep your fitness even when you're facing a setback? Or get to the start line healthy and faster? If you ask our friends at Lever Movement, you just might find the answer to all of these questions is a resounding yes. We are thrilled to welcome Lever Movement back as our sponsor for season 9 of the Injured Athletes Club podcast. And if all that sounds good, they have an offer that makes it easier than ever for you to try the Lever system for yourself. In case you haven't heard about it yet, the Lever system is a portable, lightweight device that attaches to a treadmill to reduce your body weight. This is very good news for all of us athletes because it means less impact on the joints, so we can come back from injury safely or even prevent getting hurt in the first place. And the best part is that it's portable. That means you can use it at home or even take it to the gym and set it up in less than 2 minutes.
Elite athletes like marathoner Sarah Hall and Jess Lehrmanth, an Olympic gold medalist in triathlon, have used Lever in their training and rehab routines. And we know, so have many of you in the Injured Athletes Club. If you'd like to check out the Lever system for yourself, use the discount code INJURED20 to get 20% off any device. And stay tuned here on the podcast and in the Facebook group for the Injured Athletes Club this season. We'll have more exciting updates from our partnership. We have some fun plans in the works with Lever we know you're going to want to check out. No, that's really interesting because another thing that I kind of wanted to ask you about, you and I had talked a couple years ago and we talked about some of this, was that kind of like the evolution even when you were an athlete in terms of your relationship to the sport and its role in your life and mental well-being because, you know, obviously it provided this world of opportunity for you, but you also hit some points of pretty deep frustration with inequities and bureaucracy and all of that kind of stuff. So it's interesting to hear that maybe some of that experience that you had as an athlete, like now you're realizing, oh wait, that was actually just a part of my athletic experience, and now that is beneficial. But yeah, talk a little bit more about kind of navigating some of that back then, and maybe how your perspective on that has shifted now that you I don't know, you're not like the same as being in leadership or at the top of a bureaucracy, but like you're in a different position in an organization.
For sure, I'm in one.
Yeah,
I'm in one.
Yeah.
No, and I love like the way that you would phrase that. And we talk about this a lot, right? Is like, and I think this is also what helps with the athlete transition. And even when you're dealing with injury and you're going to recover is your relationship to the sport. Cause that's like what I realized, like, you know, there's this feeling of loss and grief. And it's like, you know, it's like somebody died, but at the same time, you're like, it doesn't really actually have to be like that. Like I've learned that sport's always going to be in my life, even if I wasn't working in pro sport. But my relationship with it changes. Just like a breakup and you become friends.
That's right.
Like, that's really, it's honestly, it feels very similar to that. But I think like, as far as navigating kind of like the bureaucracies as an athlete, like it, at least for me, it was distracting. And like, I do think looking back, like there was parts of it that did affect my performance, right? Because it felt like you had to prove a point instead of performing for yourself, instead of performing because it felt good and it was the greatest expression of who you are. There was like years where I'm like, I just need to hit this number so I can get my damn health insurance. Like mommy needs a new leg. And like, and that's real. And there, you know, then COVID hit, there's a lot of stuff where you're like, how is this going to affect my health care? Like that was one of the main through lines for my entire professional career, was being like, how will I have access to my health care? And like, you know, at least in para track and field, I'm not sure how much has changed, but like when I was an athlete, there's standards you have to hit as an athlete for like pretty much like making any pro team. And like with track and field, like the mark got harder every year, which is really hard to like PR, especially as you continue to age every single year. And like there was years where we did it, which like looking back, I'm like, that's pretty amazing. But it just like, it was something that like became my main focus because it felt more like survival really than even like making teams. Like there was years that I made my standard, which was like a harder mark than the team mark, but because of team selection, whatever, right, I wouldn't make a team. And then that felt like an injustice. So it just like, it felt really complicated. And it did, like, I think like for better or worse, I joked when I went back to school, I got my master's in sports psych because I called it a spite degree. I got this as a spite degree. And it felt like that. And, you know, spite can be a good motivator for a little bit, at least. And now, you know, there's still work. We did right on my way out. I decided I wanted to push some papers off some people's desks. So we had filed a formal complaint. We made an athlete group and we did it. And then the overlords of those organizations decided to schedule it after we had to compete at Pan Am. So we still had to do meetings and calls and stuff while we were in Chile, which we had requested not to, you know, and a part of it, again, because I was just like crusty at this point in my career and I knew that the doors were closing on me. I was like, this is just proving the point that like, as athletes, like it's not a fair playing field, even to advocate for ourselves. So a lot of the work and why I've come into this is because of athlete advocacy. I thought like, you know, if I can't change the system being an athlete, because I'm also trying to get my damn insurance, that I can at least find a side door entrance and help create structures and systems that just further support the athlete in more meaningful and more realistic ways. Like I think when I was an athlete, we weren't really even on the page of mental health there until the end. And now we're kind of in the first and second waves. And so it feels exciting now to be a part of it and to have had the experience I had. And I think like, you know, I got a chip on my shoulder, but not enough of a chip to be like, well, I dealt with this. So now everybody has to, like, to be able to have something where it's like, I dealt with this. And like, I don't think anybody should have to deal with that. So how do we keep making it better?
Yeah. Yeah. And thanks for mentioning too, like sort of the motivating factor for one of your motivating factors anyway, for getting the sports psychology degree.
Nothing wrong with that.
But yeah, talk a little bit more about that shift. Well, the decision at the time, it wasn't a complete shift then. You were doing that while you were still an athlete. Like you said, part of it was spite. I'm sure part of it was a little bit planning for what was next. But how did that benefit you while you were still an athlete? And then I guess talk about the decision to retire and move on too, because we talked about you being on the other side of that, but how did you actually make that choice and start that untangling process?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like athletes, especially at that level, like sometimes within the US OPC ecosystem or whatever, Olympic, Paralympic program, whatever country, NGB, it's just like, it just feels, you complain a lot. And that's okay. You can do stuff and complain while you do it. And like, that was for sure me. But I knew that the career wasn't going to last forever. And it just was like, after, like, as my frontal lobe was finishing forming, right, I became a little smarter. I got older, and you exchange, like, you know, your youth and your ability to bounce back for wisdom. And I was honestly a better athlete as I got older, but I did start noticing the warm-ups took a little longer. The recovery took a little longer. And I started getting to a point where, like, looking back at my career, I had missed weddings, I'd missed funerals, and like, it was worth it because I had a competition. I needed to make this mark to get my insurance, right? Like that, like I needed to be where I needed to be. And then I started missing weddings and funerals, and I was like, should have gone, right? Like I started realizing, like, even in training, for the most of my career, I was like, there's nowhere else I want to be besides this track, sweating my ass off, getting and hurting doing these workouts. And then like towards the end, I was like, I don't want to be here. Like it started being like, there's other places I'd rather be. There's other work I feel like I want to do. So, I had worked with a sports psych. It changed my life. It made me not only a better athlete, but like a better person. I was able to like manage myself better. And I loved the work. And then I had a friend of a friend start a program, and that I got through one of the USOPC like athlete emails that it was an opportunity to go into sports psych. And so COVID had happened and it was still kind of happening at this point. It was like 2021. And like, you know, I think when COVID happened and they finally postponed the games, because that was another stressor. We were like, how the heck do we train? Because they took forever. And so we're like, we still need to make these marks.
Right.
And then they finally postponed it, which like it felt weird to feel relieved by that. But then at the same time, you're like, we would have athlete town halls and there'd be like a swimmer I'll never forget was like, I'm trying to swim in the ocean and like in lakes and stuff. And it's like March and cold. I'm like, this is not safe. Like this is crazy. Besides just the basic not safe of being in a pandemic.
Right. Yeah.
But at that point, that was like probably the first time I was thinking too. I'm like, are sports important? Like, is this important? Is this why? And now again, with a little bit of more age and like now knowing the system's a lot better, like as a multi-billion-dollar industry sport is like, it will always be there just because we love to be entertained. So we will always be entertained. But I just sensed my relationship changing with it. And so, it felt a lot more gentle. And I think I'd had the conversation early in my career with my sports psych about retirement. I was like, how do you even do that? And he basically was like, 'cause at the time, Mark Strickland, who's a friend of mine now, he was like, you basically retire one of three ways. Either you choose it, your contracts kind of dry up and you have no more money to do it, or you get hurt and you are forced out. And so, I was like, I've always been a planner. I am anxiety by state and trait. And so I wanted to plan, right? I was like, how do I make this as easy as possible? And so it was fun to go into grad school and still compete because there was now like names and languages to theories. Cause when you work with a sports psych, for the most part, you just find tools that help you. But this was a way for me to kind of like label them and like really know the ins and outs of it. And then I could apply it like in different ways on the track. And now I look back too and I'm like, ooh, was I just avoiding my feelings? Right. You get into like the like spiral of like, was it just me just trying to like over intellectualize instead of just feel? And now I'm still just feeling maybe a little bit of both. I'm human. We all do it. But it was a really great way to like now like still apply it in a tangible way while I was learning things and share it with my training partners. And then still have a connection. Like I think one of the reasons why in a professional sense, I've been able to be successful relatively early, like I'm still early in my career if I think about it, is you're also like kind of building a network and you're like, you have a network of clients and athletes you can work with to get your hours in and stuff like around you. So there's for sure a benefit to that. And then like, I've gotten a lot of clients in my private practice through my physios. Like I was going to what's called Denver Sports Recovery, and like they had an in-house sports psych, no shade, but again, we all know we're not for everybody. That's why when in doubt, refer out. And there was some not good fits through them, and they were like, "Hey, are you seeing anybody? Like it might be worth talking to this athlete, or we'll just send this person your way." So there was a lot of. I haven't even thought about that, but there's been a lot of like fruits of that labor that again, it's like being the benefit of being an athlete in ways that you aren't even thinking about, just the actual performance and working hard that show up for you later, at least in this industry and in this career.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's really interesting, because I used to be a professor of grad school and taught students, and it was always interesting when we had someone come through the program that was also an athlete and then studying sports psych at the same time, because it just like really deepened their educational process because they're applying at the same time and able to put labels and language to things that maybe were already intuitive, but like, oh my gosh, that's what I was doing. And like, watching them go through the programs and learn all of that was so incredible. And I think what's interesting about that too, that you're making me realize now that I didn't realize when they were my students, is the other thing that's happening through that process is they're also starting to create a new identity. So you still have your athlete identity, right? But you're also starting to give life and breathe life into this new identity. And sometimes that can help with that. We're just going to be friends now. And we've gotten enough out of, I talk about that too a lot with my clients, like the relationship of sport, right? And that like that that it's okay to explore those other parts of your identity. Cause I think that's when sometimes it's that transition can look a little different, of retiring from sport. Cause it's a very hard transition for a lot of athletes. And like, you were talking about Mark, he's exactly right. Like, but sometimes, that there's these 3 different ways that you can kind of come to a decision about retiring. But for some of my athletes, that decision-making process, that's happening over years, not just like a month or a week or like, I'm ready now, I'm good. And the flip of the switch, it doesn't work that way. So that whole process and that transition can be really confusing. Do you feel like now, like having both experienced it yourself as an elite athlete, going through that, and then also with your professional hat on, like, is there any advice you'd give anyone that's struggling with that decision, right? Injured athlete that's like, am I ready to retire? What does this mean for me? Like anything that you feel like through your personal experience and professional experience that you would tell that person?
That's such a great question. Yeah, I love that you said you're like, it takes forever. Because I think if I were to actually look back, I would say it took me like 4 years to like probably really retire. Like to send in the USADA paperwork. Be like, please stop coming over.
It's official.
Yeah, exactly. This is my official breakup. Yeah. I mean, I think like being gentle with yourself. I think like as athletes, we get so into the routine of being an athlete. Like I'm seeing my guys now, we haven't even officially started, but we have guys like in the center, like still doing like what's league mandated, of course, but I can just tell I'm like, they've just been like, I need my routine back. Right. And like, there's something that we love about the predictability of being an athlete, even though you don't know how the performance is going to go. Like, that every 4 years I have a quad I'm working towards. Every year I have a nationals that I need to like periodize and like get ready for. And then, retirement's like, you could just do anything. Like being retired feels a lot just like being on like off season summer break from school, but like, that's life. Like, that's it. That's every day. It's like, this is unstructured. You're in charge, which is really hard for people. Yeah. Like even I had an athlete yesterday that was like, I'm just ready to have someone else make decisions for me. Right. And this is a grown man in his 30s. And I'm like, same. First of all, same.
Yeah. Right.
Second of all, like, that's real. And it's really scary to be like, we as athletes, we give so much of our trust. We give like, there's so many codependent and in healthy ways relationships we give to our coaches. We're outsourcing our judgment just because we all are hoping that there's a group of us that are in agreement that we want the athlete to perform and like get this achievement, whatever. And so I think like advice, honestly, is just be easy on yourself. Like I think like it's also like if you're looking for a clear answer, like there's just a time. And I feel like for me, it was quiet and it felt gentle. Like I remember I had a friend who's a Canadian Paralympian who like told me, she's like, somebody said once, like as an athlete, you feel like this lion and it's roaring and it's so hungry for this thing. And then it gets quiet. And the roar is gone. And like, I think about that now where I'm like, it feels quiet. It's like a quiet, like acceptance and gentleness of being like, I think I'm ready. And you can still be sad. Like, it's not like I'm ready and you're like middle fingers out of the air. Like, like you can fantasize. And sometimes there's moments right, that are like that. But when the decision really comes, it's sad. It really does feel like that breakup of being like, it's not going to work out. We are no longer compatible in this way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that like that athletes get so used to, and people in general, high performers in general, but we get so used to immediate feedback. And like, we kind of like criticism, like because we want to get better. Mm-hmm. And so if somebody else and our coaches aren't doing it for us, we tend to do it to ourselves. So it's something to be like, just be gentle with yourself and like, give yourself the grace that you would give somebody else going through a hard time, because it's hard.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point too about being sad. And I think sometimes athletes will misinterpret that emotion for meaning you're not ready, when really it's going to be sad. Like like you can feel sad that it's ending and feel grateful for the experience at the same time. But I think sometimes when you feel sad, it's like, oh, I still want this. And it just gets misinterpreted because it's hard to say goodbye. And we kind of suck as a culture at grief. So like we're also battling that part of the experience too. So I think that's an important thing to just know, like you are going to be sad, like, and that's normal and that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. And I think full transparency, now that I'm like remembering things, right? Like I probably could have retired earlier. I held on. I feel like and I think most people do. Like, I think I held on a little too long. But I just remember, like, I'd go to like our like warm mother camps at Chula Vista at the training center and go compete in California because I was living in Colorado at the time. And like, I remember I would just like sobbing, like, oh my gosh, why can I not remember her name right now? Sarah from Western States, Castillo. Sarah Castillo was with US Para, and so she was like with our group and stuff. And I just remember just like sobbing to her when I got done competing. And like, it didn't really go the way I wanted, but I was like, I don't really give a shit about this. Like, I was just like, I'm so profoundly unhappy. Like, I'm just like, what it felt like was, I felt like this might be dark, but I'm like, you know, like the old school circuses and like the guys whipping the lion and pushing it with the chair. And it's just like, like just performing, but it's like just doing it because it's just sad. It's all it knows how to do with the stimulus. And like, that was really how it felt. Like, I would get done, same thing. Like, I competed at Pan Am's and I got done and I gave myself 20 minutes and I was like, you can feel sad because I got fourth, which was annoying. But I also like, didn't like it, wasn't really training. And then I got fourth and was like, this is bullshit, which like, okay, be realistic. But I just was like, man, I am so profoundly not into this anymore. And I think like that was the sign for me.
Yeah.
That I was like, I'm not happy doing this. And like, I am sad because I don't have any other friends. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And like, which is not true. Like, you've expanded your horizons, you have your people, but at the time, right, you're like, this is my only thing. But it makes me so unhappy. And like, that was when I was like, all right. Well, might as well just go on the journey and find what makes me happy.
And it is interesting to hear you say that, like, you didn't know a lot of what was going to happen. And then it felt like a quieter time after that, because like when I look at everything you've done since then, you had a private practice, like you said, in Colorado, you went to Paris as the first Paralympian to host a games in person. And now you're in a new role as the mental performance coach for a pro soccer team, like we said. And I think you're their first mental performance coach, if I'm not mistaken. So like you've done a lot and you've been like, a first in a lot of things too. And I'm curious how that has felt too. Like, if they're like sports and broadcasting and everything you're doing is like kind of high pressure enough. And then you add in like that kind of groundbreaking element too, especially in a time when you are in like a transition. Like, again, how have you kind of navigated all that? And are there ways in which you're, like you have used your own training on yourself to kind of get through that?
Yeah, no, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I'm just recently practicing. I am overwhelmed. I think it felt slow because there wasn't a rhythm and there wasn't like this thing I'm working towards. And like, there wasn't like, I didn't have to bust my ass to like feel worthy enough to get healthcare, which is crazy looking back. I'm like, oh my Lance, I cannot believe that like I spent so much time like huffing and puffing and losing sleep over that. But, I think like that, in the same vein, like as an athlete, there's always the next competition. There's always the next thing you're going to work towards. So you get used to the momentum of it. And so I think I just wasn't used to the structure, the momentum of like non-athlete life. Cause you're right. Looking back, you're like, holy crap, dude, that was a lot of stuff. But it didn't feel like it, right? Because there wasn't like a big thing I was gearing towards. There was things coming my way. And I've always been a big proponent. Like if it excites you, you should say yes, try it out. Why not? Like worst thing that can happen is you don't like it and you learn. And so, yeah, I don't think I've done a good job of reflecting in a more timely manner. But now I've been doing some reflection on it because I finally feel like I'm in a stable place. Because I think, again, with the identity too of like, I had to move. I needed a new prosthetic. So like tending to my disability stuff, which can be a full-time job, which is annoying. And then the nebulousness of creating a program when there hasn't been one. Like it's exciting and there's, it's exciting being the first in a lot of stuff. And I think like as athletes, we put that on our resume, the first to do this, right? Like, oh, the very first, especially in Paralympics, like, cause we're a new sport movement. But the problem with being the first is like, you're the blueprint. Like you need to be the one that makes and like, while it's exciting and like great marketing, it's really isolating. Sometimes it feels lonely. So I feel like for a long time, I've just kind of put my head down and just powered through, which like worked for me as an athlete. And then now looking back, I'm like, okay, let's organize some things. Like I think now, and that was something even like when we were talking about with my degree in sports psych, like having that education really helped me organize a lot of things that I knew intuitively. And I think right now I'm finally at a place where I can reflect and like have it be a little bit more organized on the way that the trajectory's gone. And it's still hard. It's still hard and confusing. And every day I wake up like, and I'm just like, I have to scratch my belly for a second and be like, well, all right, what am I going to do today? And then usually write down a list and go from there. But yeah, you know, it's finding the different ways of building the routine and structure and like, we've outsourced to so many people as athletes and like being like, I'm the team now. I'm the team of me now. And that's not to say we don't still have support from other folks, but that, you know, we're the driver and the coach of this right now.
Yeah, for sure. Well, now that you are building this new program and you're in this team environment, working with this team, what are you kind of starting with? What are the most important skills and concepts you're emphasizing with your players in this now heading into your second year? And kind of what does some of your day-to-day and week-to-week look like?
Yeah, it's been, so I'm coming into my second season. The first season I had like so many plans. I was so gung-ho. And I think like something I was just talking about, I knew from Paralympics, but then you forget, right? We're athletes. We forget stuff and need to be repeated to all the time. Coming from having a private practice, I've learned very quickly versus being integrated into a team, when you have a private practice, more often than not, athletes are coming to you. So they have a level with that. And that means they already have kind of a basic level and understanding of themselves, of psychology, and then being integrated into a team now. And my team is amazing. It's very multicultural. We have athletes. It's about 50-50 Spanish speaking and English speaking. I'm fluent in Spanish. And lived in Argentina, but I'm not a native speaker, which I think culturally is important, but it's very diverse. And then it's a bunch of like grown-up guys, sometimes grown-up guys, because they're like 18, 19 to like 40, right? That you have to manage. So there's a broad range and a very broad level of understanding of self and understanding of sport, psychology, mental performance specifically, right? Because I'm mental performance, I'm non-clinical, and getting everybody on the same page and trying to understand the mechanics and working like a daily flow alongside all of your other work colleagues. So strength and conditioning, like dietetics, your coach is the actual technical practice, because that's really the star of the show every day, right? Is making sure that like guys playing soccer are playing soccer. It's been really interesting. So last year, you know, I had a lot of plans and I feel like I came in way too high level. I was talking about, like the eyes off, like optimal arousal and like, okay, like where are you, your stress level? What does that feel like? And I've learned very quickly that I'm like, oh, this is a group. We talked about like stress levels, like what it's like to be like in the happy middle, and then like ways that we can pacify it was with breath work. And I did this like all in one session. The guys were sitting, it was quiet. I did it bilingual too. So I'm switching back English and Spanish, which is difficult, but I like being able to speak both. It feels good. I love the multicultural aspect. But it's just silent. I remember like one of the team leaders got done and they left, and like the group soccer culture is like very compliant, very like agreeable. They got done and like you could just tell, when you present and you're like, that did not hit. They completely missed it. One of the guys came up to me and in Spanish, he was like, don't worry, we're just new at this. And I was like, that's so nice.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
I was like, oh, sheesh. So like a lot of it has been like applying like concepts and techniques and really just kind of everyday conversations. The first year I would consider a lot more observation and relationship building, but we did a lot. Like I'm planting the seed and we'll do it again this year because we're getting new guys. Is just like the first step is awareness, right? When we talk about mindfulness, it's the awareness that is the first step. Like being aware that you think about stuff and like being aware of like how you're talking to yourself and like being aware that like, oh, I was locked in and then I lost focus, or like I was locked in and now the referee has a red card in my face. What happened? How did we get here? And so the first step, like always, the way that my plan is for this year too, is like honestly doing some safety stuff first, being like, what does a crisis actually look like? Like, what can a crisis look like? And like, what are the resources? And like knowing, especially being a good teammate, if I'm seeing a teammate kind of like struggling, like what are the signs? And then from there, again, like the awareness and the acceptance. I think like if I were to go really, really broad is like, I like following the MAC and ACT protocols. So mindfulness, acceptance, and commitment, and then acceptance, commitment therapies. And essentially, like, all it is just being aware, like, what am I thinking?
Mm-hmm.
How am I saying it to myself? The acceptance of being like, okay, these systems are whatever, my coach, I whatever. And I talk with my athletes a lot. I'm like, I just call it it just be like that sometimes. Because sometimes they really do just be like that, right? Like, there's a lot of things we cannot fix. There's a lot of things we cannot control. So how good are we at accepting and then still moving within the parameters that are set within us? And like, that's, kind of like the main part of MAC and Act 2 is being like, okay, so if this is kind of like my situation, it is what it is. Where can I still move? What's the next step? So that's like the frameworks that we follow. And so I would say essentially it's like awareness. I think stuff. This isn't me just purely reacting. The acceptance. Okay, like the ref is not on our side in this match. Or like, okay, I have to play with this person and I really do not enjoy them as a human. And that's okay, right? Like, we can't choose our families. We can't choose our teammates all the time. And then being like, how do I still become the best version of myself on the pitch? How do I still become the best version of myself when I'm at home? Because I think like life is the performance sometimes. And the cool thing about this work is like, not only does it enhance performance on the game of play, like hopefully these people enjoy it enough that like they feel like they're becoming better people. And I think that, that is the contagiousness. That is the pandemic I want for us. It's good people, the good people pandemic.
In favor of that. Well, and there was something that you had said in like one of the videos that the Timbers put out about you, which is very cool. We'll link to it in the show notes, but you had said that like working on this for yourself not only made you a better person, it made you enjoy being a person more. And I was like, wow, that's like a really cool way to think about it. Like that's what a great goal of like working on your mental skills and your mental health.
Yes. The road is hard. It's going to be hard. I tell my athletes all the time, I'm like, count on problems. Just count on it, right? Because that's just life. Count on injury. Count on it. But how do we make it a little bit more of an enjoyable ride, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Including the parts that are hard. Like when you really allow yourself to kind of fully immerse yourself in your own humanity, the parts that are hard can be beautiful too. It sounds crazy and it sounds, and it is very challenging to get to that point. Like sometimes you'll probably go through this too. Like sometimes I'll have my athletes say, oh my God, Gary, I'd much rather like go run sprints than do this work. Like it'd be so much easier like to go do Tabata intervals than to do the work that you're making me do. It's hard work, but it pays off in dividends because it pays off not only on the pitch or on the court or like wherever your performance is, it pays off in life too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm like, that's affirming because I'm like, listen, you guys running on that grass and lifting these weights. I'm like, that's no longer hard for you anymore. This is the hard work. It is. And it's hard to be curious about yourself, especially when it's a painful moment. But there's so much growth that happens in the discomfort. And then that's like the beauty of the work is it's like, we're always expanding. We're always evolving. And like, if we can even just be aware of it, that's a win.
And are you, I know like soccer has a lot of injuries. Like, are you at all integrated in any of their rehab? Or are you working with them when they're injured? Or how does that kind of fit together?
We have like a little bit, last year it was just kind of like a little a la carte, I would say. But again, like a lot of like this work too, like since we are the vessels of the work, like a lot of it is the relationship that you build along folks that are injured. I always have a touch point with any athlete that has a significant injury that's going to take them off the pitch. I like to kind of just evaluate like, hey, what are you feeling right now? Like, what is going through your mind right now? And like, a lot of the guys are really, really mature. And like a lot of the guys too are just like, I'm freaked out. And I'm like, yes, like all of the above. Right. And then as they're going through treatment, as we're like getting everybody on the same page, like moving forward, I like to do like values work and then like kind of remind athletes, like when you're injured being like, when this is all done, because most likely, right, we don't make promises, but most likely you won't be stuck here forever. How do you want to look back at this time? How do you want to feel? Like, who do you want to be when you look back at this moment when you're your future self? And sometimes that's a little too abstract, right? So we kind of like walk through the journey of being like, what are my values? Like, what's really important to me outside of this? And that's really hard with athletes, especially pro athletes, when you're like, nope, that's it. This is all I am, because it does take most of your time. And I get that. So But it really is, I think, just like kind of doubling down again on the identity. When we deal with injury, it's like a great, great time to work on your identity outside of the sport and kind of create that little deposit for your future self in those moments, because it can be a good time to slow down, even though it sucks.
Yeah. Which is, yes, we have a whole chapter in our book. Like, injury sucks.
Yes. We almost called the book Injury Sucks, but we changed the title.
Somebody just recently came up and shared like an injury with me, and I was like, that sucks. And they were like, thank you.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Because she was like, you didn't say sorry, and like, you didn't like whatever but it does suck. And I was like, yeah, it just sucks. That's it.
We were kind of chit-chatting about this a little bit before we started recording, but another thing that you have done and are going to be doing again this winter is serve as a host for the Paralympics for NBC. And you had mentioned a little bit about kind of the impact of the media coverage on all of this too, which I think is interesting, whether you're talking about injury or just high performance, that athletes are doing all of this on this huge stage, and especially when you come around to something that only happens every 4 years. So I'm curious how you think about that, both in your work with athletes on the mental performance side, and also in how you are covering them as a host on the media side.
Yeah. I could talk about this. Is another thing I could just like, maybe we just write a new book. No, I found myself talking about this a lot when we were presenting at the most recent ASP in Montreal. On like, we were doing a colleague of mine had published some work on like dealing with the post-Olympic blues. And I think like we are not having the conversation enough about how, at least specific to Olympic and Paralympic sports, how the media does affect performance and how the media can really affect an athlete. And this is further from even social media, because I've inherited athletes, right, who are working with folks that are like, just delete your Instagram. And you're like, nope, that's not how this works. And that's not only not how it works, but you're like, now this is where people are generating revenue. Like, this is where a lot of athletes are able to like be an athlete. So it's not really, that's not a feasible option. But again, how are we changing our relationship, and how are we finding control within some of those constraints? And like, I hopefully will have a point with my team this year to be like, here's the notifications button and here's the off switch.
Yes,
Turn it off.
Exactly.
Turn it off. At least when you're competing, at the very least. But you know, the media, what I've learned now with my work doing Paris, and then hopefully when this is ready in Milano Cortina, we work with basically like the structure of it is like you kind of get like a big old book, and these are like the storylines. So it's like learning like the kind of like the function of the media. So the media is trying to create like these storylines, and like, you know, again, like as athletes, we kind of comply. Like you're like, yes, this is me. They know that I'm from Denver. They know that my dad was an athlete. So like, you know, they're building storylines because sport in and of itself is an entertainment industry. So they want the audience, they want viewership, they want people to kind of have people that they're rooting for and cheering for going along the journey, building up to the games, like hopefully getting on the podium. And it can be a lot of pressure because, you know, the athlete now is not only just like performing because they're like, shit, I told NBC that I wanted to be a medalist in all of my events. But now, you know, there's a story that's also about like my humility and this, and they've like came and filmed before I even made the team. And then what if I don't make the team? You know, like there's a lot. I had just mentioned again, like in my most recent life reflection, where I'm like, athletes are performing all the time, and it's not always in practice or, you know, in the game of play. They're performing with how they're managing their perception of themselves in social media, with how they're managing their perception of themselves in the media, like how they're deciding to take interviews. And that can be really hard in the heat of the moment, and it can be distracting. And I think we've all seen enough media coverage of sports and athletes where like you've seen a reporter ask an athlete a question and you're like, why did you ask that question to that person in this moment? Right? Like, are you sensitive at all? Like, what, you know, it's like, okay, somebody loses really bad and they're like, what happened there? Right? Like, okay, like that, like, is that helpful? And so I think like, I think that there's ways that we can be like, tell us what was going through your mind. Just like a lot of different ways I think that we can frame the question. And something I think for me personally, and then specific to para, is like, and NBC is doing a great job of like moving away from the disability narrative. Like we're done. Yeah. Like this is not just like the sympathy Olympics. Cause I think for so long, our culture has just been like, oh, love's a sob story. loves to be like, look at these poor souls. If they can do this, then you can get out of bed. And you're like, that's so distracting from the sport. Ain't nobody thinking about that. Like in para, like everybody's legs come off just like the rest of us, but we're here to do our sport. And so really being like incredibly intentional on keeping it sport specific, but also I think with like what I know in mental performance now, like how are we framing the questions and like how are we getting really cool feedback and I don't know, just responses from the athletes in the heat of the moment. Cause in Paris, I had an experience. It was the last day and an athlete, and this is like so typical high achieving athlete, an athlete got silver, I think, instead of gold. So pissed, right? Like, and like we know the research is like silver medalists are like the least happy people.
Yeah, totally.
And like I've been a silver medalist, and I felt mad. I'm still mad about it. Years later, I'm still mad about it. And I think like, I don't even know what I asked, but I could just tell like our interaction, even just a Paralympian seeing another like visibly physically disabled person, like they just interact different and better. You know, like when you're an athlete and you talk to another athlete, there's like that connection of like, you get it. And so that's another side project, what's it called now? A side quest that I'm working on where like I think that like the overarching journey of my life right now is I want athletes to see themselves in more important leadership positions outside and like in more, not even just leadership positions, I guess, but just see themselves in positions that they interact with daily as athletes. Like I started realizing as I was retiring, I'm like, the people in charge of my NGB, not Paralympians, not athletes, not disabled people. You know, the people in charge of them, not really athletes, not disabled people, not Paralympians. And then NBC, you're like, not any of this. Like, and so like, where do we go? We get old and crusty and we disappear. Where are we supposed to go? And I think that's motivating. I think athletes should know, like, and have it be more visible that there's a lot more to the story. Because more often than not, it's a short career in sport, but it's a good platform for a lot of other stuff.
Well, and I think that what you said earlier kind of about, I mean, I feel this way about a lot of people who have like maybe not a completely linear career path. Like sometimes you don't realize until you are going through it, all of the like foundation that you're building and like the threads that you're weaving that end up coming together later on in ways that you don't expect. So I think you just talking about this and sharing your experience in that regard and being who you are, where you are, doing the things you're doing is really powerful in helping other people realize that they can do that too. So yeah,
you got to see it before you can be it. Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, Lacey, we can't thank you enough for being here and sharing all of this with us. I feel like we could probably talk for another 4 hours about any of these topics. But just to kind of close this out, tell us a little bit about your future goals, like both for yourself as a professional, for your team, and like your career as a whole. Like what is future Lacey excited about?
Oh, man. That's a great question because I've been reflecting so much. I'm like, what is ahead right now? No, I mean, I just like, I'm in a growth phase right now, right? Like transition and growth is so uncomfortable. And I was like, ugh, why do I feel bad? And it's just, I've been there for like a year now. And I think like moving forward I'm looking forward to having like a little bit of stability, honestly, in a way that I'd never had as an athlete and seeing like, what are other ways that I can expand and grow and keep supporting athletes in that? And I think for the team, like I'll know that when I start seeing some more psychological agility being applied. But I've seen it even in checkouts, you know, in brief conversations. I've seen some athletes like, I was like, it sounds like your decision is this. And then I've seen them like turn around and be like, yeah, I decided to say this to the coach. And you're like, oh my gosh, it is working, right? Like it's so hard. So much of the work that we do, you're like, I don't know. I have no idea if this is working. So I think like, the small wins, I just want to see small wins keep compounding right now. But I think big picture, who knows? Who knows? The sky's the limit. I really feel like that.
That's awesome to hear. Well, again, Lacey, we can't thank you enough for being here. We can't wait to watch you on our screens again. And we'll link all the things that we talked about in the show notes and your social media so people can keep up with what you're doing next. So thank you again, Lacey. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks again to Lacey for joining us and to our sponsor, Lever Movement, for making the show possible. Don't forget, you can get 20% off at levermovement.com by using the code INJURED20. We also want to let you know about some other resources we have for you. If you head to our website, injuredathletesclub.com, and click on the More Resources tab, or go to buymeacoffee.com/rebound, you're going to find so many goodies that will help you along your recovery journey. You can get for free downloads of worksheets that go along with our book, Rebound, affirmations that you can say to yourself over and over when you're injured, and some quote picks from Coach Carrie from some of our previous seasons of the show. There's also some webinar recordings and other goodies, just so many resources to help you as you go through rehab and recovery. The best part about all of this is that anything that you purchase, some of these resources are free, some of them cost just a few dollars, and anything that you buy goes to support the show and the work that we do for injured athletes. Another thing that you can do for yourself if you're having trouble during this journey is to go to our Facebook support group, also called the Injured Athletes Club. You can get links to that and everything else we mentioned in this episode on our website, injuredathletesclub.com. Thanks, and we'll see you there.